Well, good evening, everyone. I'm thrilled to share my story with all of you tonight. As a small town kid from Ely, Minnesota, I've always dreamed of standing here today, about to graduate from the University of Minnesota with a degree in mechanical engineering and a minor in computer science. But thanks to the incredible support of the Alworth Scholarship, I've been able to pursue my dreams and overcome some pretty daunting challenges along the way. I'm here tonight because I believe that my story can inspire others to push themselves beyond their limits and make a real impact in the world. Whether you're a student, professional, or just someone who's passionate about innovation and making a difference, I hope that my experiences will resonate with you and encourage you to take bold action in pursuit of your goals. From my days building electric longboards in my parents' garage to racing a solar-powered car across the Australian outback, I've learned a lot about what it takes to innovate and make an impact. And I can't wait to share these lessons with you tonight. During this, please keep in mind that I am not special. I truly believe that anyone can do what I have done, as they just need to have the right attitude. There are far more talented people than myself, and they've done far more. So, as I grew up, life presented me with numerous challenges that easily could have hindered my progress if I'd let them. Ever since I can remember, my parents have been divorced. I switched between their houses on a weekly basis, making change a constant in my life. It felt normal, as I didn't really have many close friends with whom I could share my experiences. To add to this, money was tight, and we didn't have the luxury of going on vacations or doing things that many others may have taken for granted. It wasn't until much later, when applying to colleges, that I discovered that I'd been diagnosed with autism in the 5th grade. I finally understood why it had been such a struggle for me to make friends and comprehend relationships. But despite these obstacles, I refused to let them hold me back. A game called Minecraft became my escape, my happy place where I could unleash my creativity without limitations. I felt liberated, as if the world was at my fingertips. The Minecraft community provided me with a sense of belonging, something that I'd never really felt before. I began tweaking the game to suit my interests and learned more about computer systems in the process. My skills grew to the point where people started approaching me to fix their devices, including the teachers at school. I was even repairing phones on the side, and I found solace in using my abilities to help others. At the age of 14, I began working at a canoe outfitter, and from the start, I was the hardest worker there. Even when my coworkers were slacking off, I gave my best effort to ensure that everyone had the best possible experience. My payment came in the form of knowing that I'd done a good job, rather than money. And although I didn't realize it at the time, this work ethic would pay off far more in the long run than any monetary reward could. I saved almost all of my earnings for college because I'd always known that was where I was meant to be. I never once doubted that I would attend college and graduate. As I worked, I listened to the captivating stories of Brandon Sanderson. His tales transported me to other worlds where ordinary people encountered myth and legend, overcoming impossible challenges while exploring the meaning of right and wrong. And inspired, I thought to myself, why can't I do that too? So that's exactly what I've done, because in the end, we're all just human. The only thing that separates us from one another is our attitude and our goals. And looking back on these experiences, I gained invaluable lessons that have stuck with me to this day. I learned how to turn my weaknesses into strengths. And in the end, I had a better understanding of how to do something because I had the experience of all the ways not to do something. I also learned that failure is not only likely to happen, but it's a necessary first step. Only upon reflection of these failures and a genuine desire to do better can things be learned. And perhaps most importantly, I learned that how we see ourselves and what we believe we can do shape what we're actually able to do, not the other way around. And if I had known that I'd been autistic when I was younger, I easily could have let that hold me back and preventing me from achieving what I have. It's important to note that these lessons did not come to me in the moment. but rather through reflection and introspection. I continue to reflect on my experiences and learn from them, and these lessons have become a cornerstone of my personal and professional growth. As I look back on my high school years, one project in particular stands out above the rest: building an electric skateboard from scratch in my dad's garage. And I decided to make my own, thinking it'd be cheaper. It wasn't. I began my project by researching and watching tutorial videos on YouTube. I ordered all the necessary materials online, including the wood for the longboard deck, as none of the local stores had any of the materials, including the wood. When it arrived, I stacked and glued all the layers of wood together. Since I didn't have any clamps available to me, I piled as many rocks on top of the wood as I could while the glue dried. The real challenge came with the electronics. Heck, I didn't even know what a resistor was. And though I didn't understand what I was doing, I followed the videos to the best of my ability. And as it turns out, the videos were not that helpful for someone who didn't know what they were doing. So I had to teach myself everything from battery chemistry and motor control to soldering and programming. And after all the testing and tweaking, the board was finally in good working order, and writing it was an incredible experience. Looking back, the project taught me so much about determination, adaptability, and problem solving. And yes, it may have ended up costing around $1,200, but the knowledge and skills I gained through the process was worth every penny. Looking back, I realized that during the project, I assumed I was going to be successful. And this was key to me actually being successful, as otherwise I may have given up partway through. And I also learned that no plan ever survives first contact with reality. Things never go according to plan, and you must be adaptable to the obstacles that come up along the way. If at first you don't succeed, try again. My first day as a college student began on August 27th, 2019. And just a few days later, I discovered the Solar Car team at a student group expo. This completely student-run group designs, builds, finances, and races solar-powered cars across 2 continents. As an aspiring engineer passionate about combating climate change, I was captivated and attended an info session the following month. My most vivid memory of that info session is walking into the shop and seeing my first ever solar car, EOS 1. I was fascinated by how different from a normal car it looked. I was immediately hooked, and I wanted to be involved as much as possible. So I asked to work on whatever needed the most work and didn't have enough people working on it. The system that fit that description was the battery box. I was excited to start as I finally got to learn how engineers did what they did. The battery box is simply a box that holds all the electronics and battery cells so that it can be removed and maintained. Over the next 2 months, I learned how to use Creo, which is one of the most frustrating and least user-friendly programs I've ever used in my life. After much trial and error and many hours of work that Creo did not save, I finally had a first revision. Ben Gallup, a senior member on the team, helped me to get started with the design. And I also learned about engineering concepts such as stress and strain way before I ever learned them in class. Older members taught me how to mix and work the resin into the carbon fiber so it could be laid on a mold and set to cure in a car-sized oven overnight. After I finished the battery box, I needed something else to work on. So I again asked, what else needs to be done that no one else is doing? Freya's chassis, made out of carbon fiber sandwich panels, needed to be manufactured. So I made this my new task. A few months before COVID hit, I began to come up with concepts for the shell of the next car. My first concept looked pretty wild, but as I put in revisions, they became more grounded in reality. I learned how to use computational fluid dynamics to simulate how air flowed past the car and showed them how much drag was on the car. And because of my involvement in the chassis, roll cage shell, and other things, I was asked to be the composites and structures advisor for the team. And I gratefully accepted the position, and I did my best to help and guide others where I could. At this point, I was going into my 3rd semester of college, and I was the most experienced member on the team with the chassis. So I decided that I would design the chassis for G1. That was scary, as I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And near the design of the chassis, I also designed the rims for the car. Reaching out to alumni and putting in 40 revisions, and using ANSYS to develop the concept. And after 2 years of waiting for them to be manufactured, I finally got to pick them up, grinning like a kid on Christmas the whole time. They turned out beautifully, and I couldn't be happier. Once the chassis and rims were complete, I didn't have much else to do. So I decided to again take on what was most needed to be done and no one else wanted to do: door hinges, ducts, and lights. That's right, I decided it'd be a great idea to take on 3 systems I had no idea how to do all at the same time. But by this point, I hope you guys have caught the pattern. I reached out to alumni and read through documentation to learn more. I was not satisfied with how things were done in the past, so I did more research to figure out how to do it better. And I then implemented a novel solution which was never done before and fixed many of the problems that previous designs have not solved before. To illustrate with the hinges, the thing on the left there, all the doors in the past of previous design, all the doors in the past would not shut right. So these hinges have pivot points that are much farther apart and incorporate a 4-bar mechanism. I learned how to do non-linear analysis in ANSYS and used the CNC mill for this project, as these parts were far too complex to do by hand. And I'm pretty proud of how they turned out. Over my years on the team, I've not been able to go on race. I applied for the 2020 American Solar Challenge, and I was accepted. But COVID had unfortunately canceled that race. The next race was ASC 2021. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go due to my summer internship at Southwestern Advantage. And finally, there's 2023. This time, the race is the World Solar Challenge, held in Australia during October. I thought to myself, this is my last opportunity to go on race. And it's in Australia, of all places. I wouldn't pass this up for the world. I applied, hoping the entire time that I'd be accepted for the race. And when I got the email saying that I'd been selected for race, nothing could have made me happier. Everything I'd ever wanted was finally happening. I'm going to WSC, and I'm not letting anything get in my way. If you'd like to follow along with the team, please visit our website or follow us on social media. My time on Solar Car has been incredibly valuable, and I'm filled with gratitude towards it. I believe that I have learned far more about engineering from this experience than I have from my formal education. For those of us who aspire to make a difference in the world, Solar Car is the perfect training ground, and there's no experience quite like it. And thanks to the Alworth Scholarship, I had the opportunity to participate in Solar Car and pursue my education without the burden of student debt, ultimately letting me graduate debt-free. Marshall W. Alworth established the scholarship with a vision to support students who aspire to become leaders in fields that are crucial for the betterment of society. As a recipient of the scholarship, I feel privileged to be a part of this tradition, and I aspire to make a meaningful impact in the world. And I'd like to take a moment to express my gratitude to those who have helped shape me into the person I am today. I'm thankful to my parents, who instilled in me a strong work ethic and a positive attitude. I'm thankful for the doctors and therapists at the Polinsky Rehabilitation Center in Duluth that have helped me overcome some aspects of autism. And I'm grateful for the teachers who fueled my curiosity and passion for learning. Thank you to Patty and the other Patty, and all the other members of the Alworth Foundation for supporting my education and asking me to be here tonight. But most importantly, I am grateful for the hardships in my life that have challenged me to become better and have laid the foundation for who I am today. Change can be uncomfortable, but it's exactly what our world needs right now, and it needs a lot of it. The first step towards making the world a better place is acknowledging and believing that we can. So let us all strive to become the best versions of ourselves and make a positive impact in the world. Thank you.